going to do the Hall of Fame. It's been a long while since we've done a Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
class.
I've missed the Hall of Fame.
So we're doing the 2005 Hall of Fame class. Just as a bit of a recap, in case anyone has joined us late in the piece and aren't familiar with our illustrious institution. So we started it at the NRL era for a number of reasons, predominantly so we could talk about players whose careers we've seen in entirety or near entirety. A maximum of 3 players to be inducted per Hall of Fame class. A set of criteria which we'll get to when we discuss the individual players. But through 7 years of Hall of Fame classes, we have a Hall of Fame including Greg Alexander, Tim Brasher, Bradley Clyde, Laurie Daly, Andrew Eddinghausen, Brad Fittler, Paul Harrigan, Alan Langer, Glenn Lazarus, Cliff Lyons, Steve Renoff, Ian Roberts, Dale Shearer, Paul Sirenen, Ricky Stewart, Gordon Tallis, Kevin and Steve Walters.
Wonderful group of players.
Pretty impressive list. So we're going to do 2005 tonight. And as I like to do, I go through the year's events and have a look at some of the stories in rugby league. And one thing I've got to say, NRL player behaviour is immeasurably better now than it was in this era. And I think this was the year where it was the absolute nadir, like this period, you know.
This was like fire up.
Yeah. So it wasn't this bad in the 90s. It wasn't this bad like 5 years ago even. Like this period, this early 2000s was a nightmare.
Yeah, it was the era of party boy arrogance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good.
So in this 1 year, you had the Dane Tills Newcastle Knights on the rampage at Bathurst.
It could happen to anybody.
It's so funny that like Dane Tills subsequently went on to sign for Canberra and had a pretty good career.
Yeah, good prop.
In the stories after he was signed by Canberra, the typical redemption tale, there was a kind of like victimization. I remember one quote where he was saying, it was tough on the sidelines seeing guys that I was like ahead of going on and playing first grade. And it was a bit like, poor Dane Tills. And it's like you forced yourself onto like an unconscious woman. Like, there's no NRL career for you if that happens now.
Thank God it didn't happen in New York and the Broncos signed him.
So yeah, that was bad news. The other one, this was the year of, speaking of Mitchell Pearce, the infamous Craig Gower cutting loose at the Jack Newton charity golf.
I forgot about that one.
So like this has always been like held up as one of the funniest stories in rugby league, especially in the wake of Mitchell Pearce subsequently going on to have a long NRL career. What I had forgotten or didn't realise that like he like groped Wayne Pearce's daughter on the genitals. I'd like forgotten that aspect of it.
It's funny when you bring up old scandals because they're totally out of your mind because there's been so many to replace them, and then they come back really fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my experience.
But this is one of the classic rugby league trope scandals where it involves a sponsors event.
Yeah,
a lot of sponsors event scandals occurred in the era.
Yeah, absolutely. So there were at least 4 incidents involved. So in addition to chasing Mitchell Pearce around with a bottle, groping Wayne Pearce's daughter Tatum, he had arguments with several other guests, probably like sponsors of the NRL, damaged a golf cart, and walked around the resort naked and held a butter knife to the throat of a Sydney radio personality.
That's what you call a big night out.
And going back to the party boy arrogance of that era, 9 footage of the event showed him on stage with the MC Billy J. Smith, who I believe was the host of It's a Knockout.
Really?
I know Stan Zamanek was on there as well. Ricky May was a referee, but
I know Ricky May.
The
Jackie McDonald.
The name's familiar from It's a Knockout. correct me if I'm wrong, listeners. But yeah, so he was on stage asking Gower about alcohol on the Kangaroos tour to England. He said, "What about this drinking they reckon that's been happening over there?" Smith asked. Gower's first words were censored, and he continued, "I'm just trying to get into it now." And then in the immediate aftermath of the incidents, he said, "I'm up here to have a good time and that's it. What, I can't go out and enjoy myself? At the end of the day, I'm a normal bloke. I'm no better than anybody else. As long as I respect others, that's the main thing."
You know, it makes me laugh. I hadn't heard of the butter knife thing until today.
But this is what I mean about the behaviour improved since that time. Like, it was so ingrained that you had like NRL officials and like player managers and club bosses coming out in defence of this like ridiculous behaviour.
No, because it was considered wowzer like behaviour. Like, you know, all we're trying to do is have a laugh with the boys, and be like, the laugh with the boys was near criminal.
Well, Gower's manager Greg Willett came out and said that he was a great role model. Clearly, he just denies it. He says that's not how it was. "I can only vouch for his character. It was his Bucks night. Everybody was buying him beers and that." That's in the quote. Buying him beers and that. He had 2 days of a Bucks party and things like that.
Too funny.
Then you had like, you know, hooligan behaviour by Bulldogs fans in that era. You know, there were flares let off at games, and to their credit, they've cleaned up those shenanigans for the most part too.
When you think about it, the NRL's done a really good job on behaviour. Just acknowledging getting people to acknowledge there's a problem for a start. I mean, the women thing still work in progress, but they made great leaps in that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's this endemic, systemic. Sounds like the Grease song. Hi, dramatic. Major problem over 100 years.
Yeah.
And they've slowly made progress. So give them props on that.
You talk about making progress and maybe some work still to go on the women's side of things. This was also the big year for the footy show. It was the year of Fatty nearly dying in a sumo suit.
I can't believe that still. Life-changing health issues because of some stupid bloody sketch.
It was touch and go. Like, he could have died. Can you imagine, like, you died falling off the back of a truck wearing a novelty sumo suit?
Oh, Jesus.
Like, what a way to go.
I mean, it could have happened on the ski fields because it was only 18 years deep into the skiing by then.
And it was also the year on the footy show that they, to address the perceived, like, blokey, you know, boys club kind of culture, they brought Rebecca Wilson into the fold, who left after one show.
But also, they get the most, you know, firebrand, blokey type female journalist as well. Yeah. And then, because she's got conservative, people hated her guts, you know, on social media, the poor thing. She was good.
She was good, and like, she talked about being traumatized for her experience, and she was tough as anything. Like, so that really says something. But the one thing I'll say to the show's defense, I guess, is apparently Sterlo and Vorden already disliked her from earlier days. And, you know, she said it was kind of a Super League thing. But, I mean, she was like, if you imagine any, like, muckraking journalists, like Buzz or anything like that, they make enemies among players, you know?
But that's almost promoting equality, their rugby league style hatred that they could hold for 25 years. Yeah. It wasn't a sexist thing. It was pure league hatred.
So funny times. I think we've come a long way.
See, like, I look at 2005 as like that was the first Thurston grand final. Oh, sorry, the second one. The first one with the Cowboys, and it feels like the modern era.
Yeah.
But like in many ways, it's a long, long time ago in terms of professionalism.
I think that's why reading some of these stories, it felt like a more foreign world to me than when I was reading stories from like 1998, because I'd put that like kind of in the past.
Yeah.
But same as you, it feels like so recent. But like, I mean, we're like more than a decade removed from it.
We always laugh at the rugby league, parochialism, that sort of thing, and all the tropes. And guys like us that love the game, it makes us laugh. But we have come a long way as a sport.
Yeah. We'll turn to the class itself, and I'll say that we also have 3 players remaining in our catchment.
Who's left in the catchment?
So we've got Nathan Blacklock, Ryan Girdler, and Brett Mullins.
Jeez. We had a big argument over Mullins and Blacklock, didn't we?
Yeah. Some interesting comparisons with some of the people on our shortlist tonight. Before we get to that, I'll just go through the long list. These are retiring players of the era who fall a bit or a lot short of the haul, but nevertheless, good careers, solid NRL players. So I'll just read it out. Matt Adamson, Monty Beetham, Jason Kalis, Shannon Donato, Owen Gutenbeil, Ian Hindmarsh, John Hopewadi, who we'll talk about at length, I'm sure, Mark Hughes, Francis Melly, and Peter Robinson. This was also the year that Stacey Jones went to the Warriors, and obviously he came back later in his career. But look at that. Beetham, Gutenbeil, Francis Melly, Jason Kalis, a lot of New Zealand talent leaving the game in that era.
That was a changing the guard.
Any memories of any of those players?
Gutenbeil, I remember being a class player, a bit injury prone towards the end, but I remember him being a real handful. I was a big Warriors supporter during that era. Yeah,
well, that wing combination of Melly and Clinton Tupy, I think that was...
that was sick. The Warriors eras, there's always seems to be guys that have a good 2 or 3 year run.
Yeah.
Lauatiti type guys and then disappear.
Yeah.
I like to see guys put a 10, 12 year career like Jones.
Mark Hughes, that was a pretty good player, I thought.
I think he overachieved.
Yeah.
It's through heart.
Yeah.
You see what he's doing now with his illness, obviously heart of a lion, this bloke. But for a guy, I don't know, maybe he looked a bit like sort of comical. Sort of like, like a bit of a joker going down the pub. It wasn't a big fellow.
Yeah.
And playing Origin and mixing it with the best in the world and holding his own.
He was a real Newcastle type.
Yeah.
And
I see it Nathan Ross now.
I was going to say, I feel like this current Newcastle team, there aren't too many of those types in this team, but Nathan Ross definitely stands out as one.
Guys that are always on the brink of quitting to go for a job in the mines. Yeah. It's like, if one more injury, I'm going for a job in the mines.
Matt Adamson, very, very solid player for a number of years.
Classy player, sort of like Super League sort of ruined him. That was his peak and then went downhill since Super League.
I read, can't remember whose book it was. It might have been Noel Kelly's, or could have been Rapers. I can't remember. But one of the books, it must have been before Kelly's, because it came out in the early 90s, I think. It's talking about, some of the gun forwards of that time, and that he name-checked Matt Adamson as a guy that was, definitely in his early career, it looked like he might have, really gone on with it.
Well, he was a guy, he had athleticism. He was big and fast and strong and had a skill. I remember him being a class player. If I had to think off the top of my head, I think he was a class player.
And just the last player on our long list, John Hopewadi.
Could have been anything.
No, I don't think he could have, because I just think he was always going to be John Hopewadi. From the start of his career to the finish, this is what this guy was. I mean, his career ended prematurely when he was suspended for 17 weeks for, leaping 6 feet into the air to take off Keith Galloway's head.
18, wasn't it?
18. No, I'm pretty sure it was 17, actually. It was 17.
Les Boyd's watching at home going, you got a flight, man.
And this was 1 or 2 games after coming back from a suspension for abusing a 13-year-old ball boy.
Who hasn't done that? But he was one of the prototypes for the modern winger, though. When guys weren't. He was the meter leader.
Yeah.
As a Manly winger, when that wasn't a done thing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely it's a waste of talent, but I just don't think he was ever going to have the faculties to put together a career that was anything less than shameful. I'll read this from the story about his final career-ending suspension. The NRL prosecutor said he had an appalling record in rugby league. But Hopewadi's counsel argued that past misdemeanours, such as poking his fingers in the backsides of rival players, should not be taken into account by the tribunal.
I don't know what to say. It's just madness.
Yeah.
I still hold Barr accountable for a little bit of that.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean... it's sad end of a career, really. Keith Galloway, the poor bug, he's a young forward. Taking his head up, next thing you know, his jaws smashed.
So we'll move on to our shortlist, reading these alphabetically. Bryan Fletcher, 9 years in the league, 170 games, 14 Origins, 13 Tests and 5 World Cup games. No major awards, no Dalian positionals. Played with the Roosters from 97 to 2002, and then finished his career with South from 03 to 05.
Classy player, good offload in him. Played in the peak Australian teams and the peak Roosters teams.
And peak New South Wales
teams. Yeah, I think all that helped him.
I always thought he was a bit overrated.
Yeah, bloody good player though.
Good player. You're right about the offload.
He's a real handful.
I don't know. He never really did it for me. I thought he was solid. He wasn't out of place in any of the teams he played in.
It's funny, looking at this short list, the guys that I thought were the best players sort of had the worst records. And I didn't I'm not a huge Fletch booster, but his record's very good.
Crazy short career, really.
Yeah. And the South thing's a bit of a bad end.
Yeah.
When he signed for the South, I was very, very happy because it was a big name for him at the time, and when they needed a big name. But that 2002 Roosters side, look out.
Yeah. So
everyone that played with him seemed to love him.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was a good sign.
And just had that real eastern suburbs vibe to him.
Well, he's a local junior.
Yeah.
Must have been.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, he's got Hall of Fame fringe numbers. 14 Origins is a great Origin career. The 18 combined Test and World Cup games.
Can't be discounted the Origin career because that was when we were dominant.
Yeah.
And he was dominant in Origin. He played really great Origin.
Yeah,
he was involved in that celebration with the hand grenade, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, let's not start on that takes him down a peg. You know?
But do you remember that Origin pack, and he was a standout in a standout pack?
I mean, you say he was a standout in a standout pack, but if you had Menzies, Hindmarsh, I'd put those two guys a clear level above Hindmarsh, a clear level above Fletcher. Probably Menzies 2 levels above.
Yeah. I don't know about Hindmarsh. Longevity, I suppose. But I'm not ruling him out.
I'm not ruling him out.
I don't think it's super strong, the candidacy.
No. But, he doesn't scream Hall of Fame to me, but class player, very good career. Yeah,
a little bit short, isn't it? Late bloomer.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I was doing it alphabetically, but you said late bloomer. Also, Eastern Suburbs Junior, played for the Roosters. Luke Ricketson. I'll go through his number. 15 years, 301 games, 10 Origins, 5 Tests, along with 4 World Cup games for Ireland. No major awards or positionals. Played with East from 91 to 2005. I think he's well short of the Hall of Fame. But you talk about a late bloomer, came onto the scene representatively quite later in his career in 1999. Ended up playing 10 Origins.
Incredible, isn't it?
Like, played all 4 tests in 2003, then announced his retirement from rep footy.
I never liked him because he was good looking and a chicken dinner.
Yeah.
Just annoyed me. But he started as a goddamn winger.
Mm.
I remember him as a winger.
Yeah.
Debuting and going, this guy's all right.
And making it into the simply the best ads is first or second year. It's you got to earn that. But
as a 300 game player, incredible.
Yeah.
And turned himself into a defensive powerhouse without the biggest physique. Come into the right club with Sticky.
I think Freddie was the making of him.
Yeah. A bit like that 2002 side, he was a major part of that. He's a leader of that pack and that umbrella defence and what have you.
And so rare to have a Roosters junior.
2 of them. Yeah. Fletch side by side.
So
I think he's above Fletch.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? Do you really? I guess he's got the 300 games.
Fletch is a classier player.
Yeah.
But this guy was a defensive genius.
I always thought he was a bit lucky to make the Origin teams. I think playing in that awesome Roosters team,
well, you can say that for both of them, really.
Yeah, you could, but
they played different roles.
Yeah,
and they work well together. One's your David Barney, or the other one's your Brad Clyde.
Yeah.
Type look.
You know? Why do you put him above Fletch?
Just the career he had. It was 300 games. Went from winging it forward, respected across the board. I don't know.
Let's do some intangibles.
Yeah,
because I think both of them fall a bit short here. So, can you tell the story of the game without these two?
Yep.
Yeah. Do they pass the grandkids test?
No.
Do they strike fear into their opponents?
Probably Fletch.
Fletch a little bit, I think, with that offload and.
Yeah, but again, different roles.
Maybe
if you're running at his edge all day, Ricketson, maybe you were fearful because you weren't getting through.
And our last intangible is, are they iconic? I think Ricketson has a little bit, just as a really good-looking clubman.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if that's enough to put him in the hall, but
you won't put Mal in the models because of coaching, but you put Ricketson in the Hall of Fame due to his Barnet. He's a pretty cool guy too, Ricker. So is Fletch.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Different players. I put him a little bit above Fletch in my mind.
Okay, because I definitely have Fletch well clear of him.
I don't know what the listeners think about that.
Yeah. I think we are going to have to put these out to the listeners.
I just saw more of Ricketson too. Seem to be everywhere.
Yeah. Next bloke, this is an interesting one. Terry Hill.
See, this is the guy that I would say is the best player in this shortlist, but his stats don't back it up.
Yeah. So I'll read this out. So 15 years in the league, 246 games, 14 Origins, 6 Tests and 4 World Cup games, no major awards or positionals. Started his career with East in 1991, played a couple of years at West, had the bulk of his career at Manly from 94 to 99, finishing his career there in 2005, and 4 years at the Tigers between 2000 and 03.
See, I can't believe he hasn't got a positional award. He was, that Origin period when he was it was a major centre.
Yeah, I mean, you'd think
grand finals at Manly.
Yeah, in the ARL, in the split season, you'd think he would have. I wonder who got it that year,
but I tell you this much: if you're an opposition centre, you're like, oh Jesus, Terry Hill today.
Yeah.
Everybody's hating playing this guy. Real handful.
Yeah. The dickhead stuff, that's a detractor, and I think it does count.
But does it count? Because it's that personality which made him that much better of a player. The niggle factor. That was literally 25% of his game.
Yeah,
maybe. I don't think you can bring dickheads into it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Joey's goosed himself several times.
And it's hard for me to weigh this up objectively because I feel now I can look at teams on their merits, but I just hated that Manly team so much.
See, so did I, but I had a really begrudging respect for them because they were just great football side.
Yeah.
95, 96. Man, the Craig Innes, Terry Hill combination.
Yeah.
He's just, to me, like, what I like about him is intangible. He's a footballer. He's a real pure footballer where it's about muscling up and aggression and probably wasn't the most skillful, but he's still very strong, good fend.
Yeah. Well, let's go through the intangibles. Can you tell the story of rugby league without him? I'd say no.
No, but you want to. Well, he's part of the draft thing. So you can't tell it.
Does he pass the grandkids test? No. Does he strike fear into his opponents? I think he did.
Definitely.
He was a really tough guy to have to deal with on the other side. Hard to bring down. Is he iconic? Of a type?
He is iconic. Iconic in the lobster pot Hall of Fame as well. But for me, he's a clear standout. It's one of those intangible things with me. His stats, the 14 Origins is impressive. That was legendary Origin period. But
in saying that, like, almost all of it was in the Super League era. Like, I think he only played like 1 or 2 games.
He was 93, wasn't he?
No, he started in 95.
Was he?
Yeah.
It was earlier than that.
Well, he made the 94 Kangaroo Tour.
Yeah.
And even that, he was dickhead, like, drinking behaviour. He was going to get kicked off the tour before it started until old Uncle Arco had a word and made sure that he got on the plane.
Yeah.
I mean, he did. I think, even though he didn't play the tests on that tour, that says a lot about his class to get on that tour, that 94 tour. Like, look at the guys in that back line.
Yeah, it was sort of an old style centre where it was about swerve and fend. I think Jamie Lyon was a similar sort of player.
I think very similar. Yeah. Jamie Lyon had a bit more of an all-round game.
Yeah. But that strength and power sort of centre. Yeah. I always thought he was a really good footballer.
I'll tell you what is a stat I wish we could retroactively look at is that metres after contact.
Oh, tackle by central. Terry Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, those guys that are all knees and elbows. Yeah, he was tackled by central.
Yeah, so I think he's a hard one to weigh up. I might put him against another bloke on the short list, another centre in Darren Smith. 15 years in the league, 290 games, 22 Origins and 3 Super League Origins, 7 tests and 5 Super League tests. Won the Centre of the Year in 1998. Played for... This is a really weird career. So, played for Canterbury from 90 to 94. Went to Brisbane 96 to 98. Not 95 to 98. Went back to Canterbury 99 to 2002. And then back to... Well, he went to England, but then finished his career at Brisbane. Like, a lot of players go back to their old clubs, but few go back to both their old clubs.
I always thought he was class. Even when he was like sort of a benched Queensland player.
Yeah.
Never sort of had the respect early in his career. And then it's sort of, like his brother Jason, at the end of the career, everyone realised, hang on, these guys are guns. And just a natural footballer, almost in the Walters family mode, where they were natural footballers and playmakers and stuff happened around them. And I remember... as I said previously, went to school with Willie Mason, and when he was at Canterbury Juniors, I remember coming through the ranks there that Darren Smith was like, a mentor for him and was a really good bloke. And a few times I bailed Willie up to ask about the football. But he was sort of like a well-respected guy at Canterbury.
Yeah. I can't, I remember him always being there, and I remember him being this really, strong-looking, big centre. But I can't really remember too many individual plays or
Well, the fact he was so adept at back row as well. Just a mad utility player.
Yeah.
Got that kangaroo jersey of Chris Anderson too. One of the hilarious rugby league moments. But I don't know. Him and Terry Hill were 2 standouts for mine on that list.
I'm going to throw one from our shortlist in the mix at this point. Ryan Girdler.
V. Darren Smith.
V. Darren Smith. V. Terry Hill.
Tough, man. Tough. much classier than probably both of them. Girdler, nowhere near as tough as Hill or Smith, for that matter, I don't think. But different type of player again.
I think you'd say that if you're judging 3 careers, I think Darren Smith had the best career, like considerably more Origins and Tests than those other guys. We didn't put the comps into it. So Terry Hill won a comp at Manly.
But he had a comp and then 2 grand finals.
Yeah. Darren Smith he timed it quite badly, really.
Well, Rico had 3 grand finals and 1 comp.
Yeah.
So who was in 2004? Actually, that was the Roosters as well, wasn't it?
No, that was the Dogs.
Yeah, but they were in the grand final.
Oh yeah, in the grand final.
So that's 4 grand finals for Rico, 1 comp.
Darren Smith played the 94 grand final with Canterbury. But I think the interesting thing about that era is he signed with Brisbane and Darren Smith did the whole I'm going to minimise your role and you're leaving. I think he put Stephen Hughes on in his place or something like that. So lost the 94 grand final, won the 98 comp with Brisbane, then went back to Canterbury. Potentially would have won a comp in 2002, but the salary cap happened.
Yeah, that would definitely win that comp.
But yeah, and then Ryan Girdler won the 2003 comp with the Panthers. So I think Darren Smith had the best career of those guys.
If you're talking about who you want to play for your life, I'd probably pick Darren Smith out of those 3.
Yeah. But if I was going to go to YouTube and watch a montage set to the Foo Fighters Learn to Fly, as every rugby league montage is required to do, for me, it's no question it's Ryan Girdler.
Yeah, different type of play though. I don't think we can discount non-glamour players.
No, I don't think so too. But if there's 2 players of a relatively equal standing...
Very classy. I think he, not unlike Fletch and Rico, played in some very good sides as well.
Yeah.
So Darren Smith played for Brisbane. So.
Yeah. Shorter rep career than either of those guys, Hill or Smith. But I think he was a really good player for all of his career.
Me too, and we sung his praises on the last discussion about him before the catchment, but I just think both of those players, Hill and Smith, are better footballers than him all round.
I do get your point that if you were picking 2 centres to play for your life, he's probably the 3rd one out of that group. There's just so many different ways of looking at it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to look at it. All 3 of them, I think, are Hall of Fame worthy. But it's if Girdler's in and Hill's not, I wouldn't feel comfortable, I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking at Hill through lobster-coloured glasses. I don't know.
I'll be really interested to see what the listeners have to say about this.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
We've got 2 more players on our shortlist, and interestingly, they both square off against each other quite nicely. So the first of them, Robbie Kearns, 14 years in the league, 281 games, 8 Origins and 1 Super League Origin, 20 tests, 6 World Cup games and 3 Super League
20
tests.
20 tests?
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Was at Cronulla from 92 to 95, the Western Reds 96-97, Melbourne from 98 to 2005, winning a comp with Melbourne in 99.
Love the fact you were the Reds.
Yeah. I'd forgotten. You kind of you remember all the splash signings in the first year. You had Mackay's, Gaia,
James Grant.
Yeah. James Grant. He said James Grant. He's not that old. Mick Potter.
See, I don't remember Kearns at Cronulla very well.
Yeah. Much longer career, not only just in terms of number of years, but
281 for a prop.
281 for a prop. The rep career is pretty crazy, 20 tests.
Yeah, that's one that's stuck under my radar. So I would have just called him a very solid player. Yeah. That's a HOF career on numbers.
Again, no positional awards or anything like that. Definitely very solid prop, but you'd always put him a fair bit down the list of great props. Maybe in the early 2000s, you could say he was top 2, top 3.
We played in that era, the Steven Asiva, Webke era, where you had to play second, third fiddle because of his legendary props, you know?
Yeah. I might just go straight to the other prop on this list and we'll talk about them together. Jason Stevens. He's married now. I think he's finally popped the cherry. I'll go through his numbers. 14 years in the league, 231 games, 8 Origins, 14 tests and 4 Super League tests. Again, no positional awards. Played for the Saints in his early career, then went to the Sharks from, I think, 96 until he retired.
I always thought he was a very classy ball-playing front rower. Yeah. Probably missing the killer instinct.
Yeah.
Seemed like, with the church stuff. And
there was a bit, there was just a bit of like missing an edge, wasn't there?
Didn't really seem to care that much about the game. I mean, that might be a bit unfair, but as a viewer, that's how it was perceived.
But I think he was like, he got closer to being the best prop in the game than Kearns did.
I did like the fact that he was a affable guy, but still a tough guy and a bit of a dirty bloke on the field. So I've just contradicted my own point. He did have a bit of an edge on the field. He hit guys high and niggle and stuff.
He always had that dopey smile on his face, like on and off the field. Like,
I think his off-field persona hurt him a little bit. Sort of this enforcer prop thing didn't really fit with his thing, but he's a bloody good footballer. I love the fact that he had skill as well.
Yeah.
And he had that big, almost like a Fafita, fat, agile body.
Yeah.
Not quite as thick as Fafita, but he was agile for a big man.
He was more than a bog standard prop.
Hell yeah.
Which I think Kearns, like, as good as he was in that role, like,
he was an efficient prop.
Yeah.
Where Stevens had a bit more line bending and moves on offer, I think.
Yeah. It's funny because without looking at the numbers, if you just ask me, is Jason Stevens a Hall of Famer? I'd think, he might be. Like, I think he's like borderline, but looking at his numbers, I think he's like, a fair way short.
Yeah, agree.
But I also think that Kearns has Hall of Fame level numbers, and I just couldn't justify putting him in.
He's a bit of a victim in this discussion of just being no frills, I think.
Yeah.
It's a bloody good prop, as evidenced by being selected for the country 20 times.
Yeah. But, I mean, we say that it's like, props are at a disadvantage, and yes, they are. But, like, when props stand out, they really stand out, Glenn Lazarus stood out. Shane Webke stood out. So if you're not able to stand out at your position, why should you get a discount because you know frills and you do your job well?
It's the Hall of Fame, not the Hall of very good players. But I would think, as a fan, I think Stevens was probably a better footballer.
Yeah.
But the better career is definitely Kearns.
Yeah. Are we ruling them out?
I think Smith and Hill are better than the candidates than them.
Yeah.
And Fletcher too, and Ricketson.
And I mean, you've just named a couple of props that we'll be having Hall of Fame discussions about in, episodes to come. I just don't think they're on the same level, and in light of that, I think we should just rule them out.
It's a bit crook for Kearns, though. Like, awesome stats, awesome career, and we're just like, no, thanks. I don't know. No point delaying it.
Yeah. Do you want to keep him alive? Your heart says no. I think it's a no for both of us.
Yeah, rule them out.
So that's our short list. I think there's no automatics there. We're going to have to put it out to the listeners and also have a long think about it ourselves.
Like the catchment versus the short list here is going to be a big fight. I still think Mullins is better player than all of them.
Well, what I wanted to reassert tonight was my case for Nathan Blacklock having a historic career. It was a short career. It was cruelled by forces outside of his control and maybe some of his own his own insecurities or fragility, but he was top try scorer of the year 3 years in a row, something that has only been done by 3 players, the last of them doing it 75 years before him. One of a handful of players to win 3 Dally M positionals in a row, the other players to do it, all considered greats of the game. His strike rate for tries is top 10 all time. And in his period of greatness at the Dragons, it was like approaching 100%. Like,
you've turned me around on Blacklock. I actually think my bias against him was the opposite of Kearns. I saw him more as a glamour finisher with the backflips, but he's a lot more than that. It was strike weapon.
Intangibles to die for.
Absolutely.
Like, so my argument is, I understand he falls short on the criteria on a number of levels. The no rep career is bad. No comps, should have had one. That all counts against him. But what he achieved was historic.
They were in the position to challenge for the comp because of his season.
Yeah.
And the winger doesn't decide that game. So
yeah,
don't blame him for that.
The only thing I'll say on this is Vunivalu he's won the last 2 try scorer of the year, or top try scorer of the year. You have to think he's at very short odds to do it again this year. Like, he's putting something special together too.
Absolute Ferrari Vunivalu. It's going to be a case of Semi who.
But yeah, so basically this was the case I wanted to put forward for Nathan Blacklock, and I want to see where you stand on it.
No, I've come around to it. That's my case for Mullins is quite similar. Short and bright with the windows we're judging on for these 2 magnificent players. So let's weigh it up then. So we've got Smith and Hill. We've got...
Well, Smith, Hill and Girdler, really.
Girdler, so they're your 3 centres. We've got Blacklock v Mullins yet again. And what was the third one?
Ricketson and Fletcher.
Ricketson and Fletcher.
Just listen to those names. When you put Ricketson and Fletcher there, it already sounds out of place to me. Yeah.
But yet again, the backs are going to have more chance for intangibles.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm happy to keep them alive and put it to the listeners.
We just can't be flipping about a bloke with a 300-game career.
No. Yeah.
Look, we've proved Hall of Fame discussion after Hall of Fame discussion. A week of deliberations in one's own mind can clarify things. Let's not cut people out just yet.
Yeah, good call. Yeah.
We'll go to the listeners. Please send in your thoughts via Twitter, Facebook, or email. And thank you for everybody that's sent the feedback in on Twitter and Facebook and the email for the Noel Kelly interview. We passed that on to Noel from the UK and Australia listeners. So that was a very popular interview, and we appreciate everyone writing in with your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. What an absolute legend of a bloke.
That was thrilling to meet the hardest man.